The ground shakes as 33 Raptor 3 engines with a total thrust of over 9,200 tons tear through the air above Starbase. And while the upper stage continues to soar into the sky, the arms of the launch and catch tower snap shut and place the booster back onto the launch platform. A moment that embodies not just steel and fire, but the pure essence of spaceflight, relentless progress that separates us from Earth. This is no longer a dream, this is Starship Block 3 on Pad 2. And right here, in the swampy landscape of Starbase, Texas, the machine is being built that will turn orbit into a highway network. But wait, here comes Blue Origin around the corner with their new Glen 9 X-4. A rocket with 9 BE-4 engines that pump out over 2,000 tons of thrust in total and send 70 tons of payload into low Earth orbit. Today, we're diving deep into the showdown. Thrust against thrust, reusability against production speed, profit against reality. We're showing Starship's next evolution. And Blue's answer to that. Welcome to the ultimate rocket comparison. My name is Serwan and this is Mars Chronicles. Let's take off. Let's get straight to the heart of the matter. Pad 2 at Starbase, the new stronghold of SpaceX, which not only enables launches but also takes the entire Starship era to a new level. This is the second iteration or version of the launch facility. But Pad 2 is so fundamentally different that you could see it as the first version of a new product. Based on the construction of this facility, SpaceX is developing the next pads, meaning the new version of Pad 1 as well as the others in Florida. While Pad 1 has already been leveled to the ground, Pad 2 is almost ready, equipped with an orbital launch mount that can handle the Block 3 boosters. The mount they installed in May is a beast, reinforced for the higher mass and the increased thrust. A flame diverter system made of perforated steel pipes that distributes water like a cushion under the engines. No concrete that crumbles like toast after launch, but a clever setup that absorbs heat and sound waves without stressing the structure. And the chopsticks? The mechanical arms on the launch tower are the star, hydraulically powered with actuators that are supposed to catch the booster when it returns. A test that's already running in simulations but could become reality in 2026. Next to it, the mega bunker is growing, a 2-story monster right on Highway 4 that serves as a support hub. Tank storage, quick maintenance, maybe even temporary storage for booster parts, a quick detour to Florida because the story would be incomplete without the East Coast. At Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39, the historic pad of Apollo and Shuttle, SpaceX is currently building a twin to Pad 2. The launch mount arrived on November 4th by self-propelled modular transporter. It was a 4-hour drive from Roberts Road, and the next day a crane positioned it precisely. The joysticks are already pretty pathetic. The infrastructure is designed to handle at least 120 launches per year. And the Gigabay? The 116-meter tall monster made of steel and concrete with over 1.1 million cubic meters of space will soon be stacking boosters on site. No more transport from Texas, but local production. An investment of $1.8 billion that creates 600 jobs. Florida will become the second Starship hub in 2026 with launches and landings now at the core. What turns Starship Block 3 from a prototype into an orbital dominance machine? And how does it differ from Block 2? Block 2 was the transition flight ready since early 2025, with Flight 7 being more of a test vehicle than a game changer. And the guys at SpaceX really learned a lot here. The ship was 3.1 meters longer, with 25% more fuel volume in the tanks, but a reduced payload area of 600 cubic meters. Priority on mass, not volume. The Raptor 2 engines already provided more thrust per kilo, lighter and more efficient, with reduced shielding just for the current technology thrust vector control, payload up to 100 tons reusable to low Earth orbit. But in practice, during tests, often at 35 tons because refueling and heat shield were not perfect yet. The booster had 33 Raptor 2 engines, which delivered a total of 7,100 tons of thrust. And the flaps were lighter, further forward, towards the tip and towards the back, positioned away from the heat shield for better re-entry control. It was solid, it showed us orbit deployment and engine reload. But Block 2 was always the stepping stone kid. Towards the end, you could even say reliable but not scalable for Mars fleets. We won't go into the explosions of Block 2 any further because I've dedicated an entire episode to each one. You'll find the videos linked below, of course. Let's move on to Block 3. This is the quantum leap that will catapult us into the operational phase in 2026. The first prototypes are already rolling around in the Star Factory and the Mega Bays. Longer tanks that stretch the ship to over 52 meters, and boosters that grow to 74 meters. Yes, you heard that right. Stretched for more fuel and stability. The Raptor 3 engines are the heart of it, each delivering 280 tons of thrust and possibly around 300 tons in the future. These engines are 7% lighter with simplified cooling and fewer shields. Only the gimbal and the actuators remain protected. The same goes for the hardware on the ship. Booster hardware requirements have been reduced, so overall efficiency gains are being made everywhere here. The Block 3 boosters get 33 Raptor 3 engines, which together deliver between 8,200 and 9,200 tons of thrust, depending on their development stage. The ship keeps its 6+3 additional vacuum variants, and the payload capacity explodes to 200 tons. Reusable to low Earth orbit thanks to orbital refueling with depot ships. How many tankers will fill a depot and how many depots will fill a Starship? We'll see. They're talking about up to 11 tankers for one Starship. For that, SpaceX has to demonstrate next year what they didn't manage to do this year, namely the transfer of cryogenic fuel in orbit. Another key technology here is the lossless storage of methane and liquid oxygen. Blue Origin presented this so-called zero boil-off technology for hydrogen a few weeks ago. If it works for hydrogen, then it will probably work for methane and oxygen as well because hydrogen is the most difficult propellant. On the other hand, SpaceX has already demonstrated internal propellant transfer in orbit from one tank to another. And the onboard electronics are fully integrated with male and female ships for ship-to-ship connections. The dry mass decreases due to fewer heat shield tiles, which again means an increase in efficiency. We're talking about 6 to 7 miles per second, enough for direct mass transfers without slingshots. SpaceX has already been testing the whole thing for over 40,000 seconds. Raptor 3 has been firing since May and Ship 39 has installed the female docking port. Block 3 is not only bigger, it's designed smarter for weekly launches with a production rate that, thanks to Gigabay and Star Factory, aims for 1,000 ships per year. But of course the challenges are lurking. Heat shield upgrades against re-entry heat, and the FAA is waiting for perfect mishap reports. If that works out, Block 3 is the key to multiplanetary ambition and a wake-up call for the competition. That's exactly where Blue Origin comes into play with their fresh announcement, which feels like a strategic move. New Glenn is not just being upgraded, but doubled from the 7X-2 to the 9X-4, a super heavy lift system that puts the Saturn V in the shade. The first number here stands for the number of BE4 engines in the first stage, and the second for the BE3U engines in the upper stage. Dave Limp, Blue's new boss, just tweeted about major BE3U upgrades. Thrust boost from 1,770 to 2,040 tons for the booster and from 145 tons to 181 tons for the upper stage. Starting with NG3, which is the third mission, the improvements will be gradually introduced. We're talking here about the first, or rather, the small Nuglin variant and the 9X-49 BE4 on the ground. The BE-3U on top, a 121-meter tall monster with an 8.7-meter fairing. It hauls 70 tons into low Earth orbit, 14 tons directly into geostationary orbits, and over 20 tons to the moon without refueling in orbit. And in reuse mode, compared to the current 7X-2 with 45 tons to low Earth orbit, that's a 55% increase, plus reusable fairings and thermal protection for faster turnarounds. Blue is planning both variants in parallel, 7X-2 for standard missions and 9X-4 for mega constellations, and national security like Golden Dome or National Reconnaissance Office missions. Costs are still secret, but with a reusable first stage and cheaper tank design, the goal is under 100 million per launch. It's ambitious and a bit late after SpaceX's 11 flights. But if they ramp up the cadence, it could shake up the market. The question is, will the physics keep up or will it be an expensive test case? Here's how I see it. I believe that the design of the New Glenn is so modularized that they can relatively easily scale the proven working model. Another advantage of Blue Origin is that they can probably launch the 9X-4 variant from their current Pad 36 in Cape Canaveral as well. The New Glenn is brought from the hangar to the pad with a transporter erector. I can imagine that Blue was already thinking ahead when building their ramp, but that's just speculation and a gut feeling. Write in the comments what you think. One thing is certain, we will be talking about Blue Origin much more often in the future. Now it's getting real. Thrust against thrust, ton against ton, dollar against dollar. We are putting the two giants side by side. Starship Block 3 in its final form and New Glenn 9X-4 as Blue Origin has just announced it. First the thrust. Block 3 Starship booster with 33 Raptor 3 engines. Each produces 280 tons of thrust at liftoff, totaling 9,280 tons of thrust for Starship. New Glenn 9X-4 has 9 BE-4 engines, each with 292 tons, so about 2,600 tons of total thrust. That's a factor of 3.5 in favor of Starship, even if Blue Origin eventually goes with 11 or 13 BE-4 engines. What has already been outlined internally is that they would reach a maximum of 3,800 tons of thrust. That's still only a third of Starship. Physics is relentless. Whoever has more thrust can either carry more payload or accelerate much faster. But the thrust doesn't necessarily say much about the payload capacity. A much more important, if not the most important metric for rockets, Starship Block 3 reusable can deliver 200 tons to low Earth orbit, with refueling even 400 tons usable for Moon or Mars missions in expendable mode. If necessary over 300 tons, the New Glenn 9X-4 can deliver 70 tons reusable to low Earth orbit, 14 tons directly to geostationary orbits, and 20 tons to translunar injection. So, to the moon. That's respectable, better than any Falcon 9, better than Vulcan or Ariane 6, but it's a third of Starship. Even if Blue brings out an 11X-4 version in 5 years, we're maybe talking about 100 tons. Starship remains in a different league. Secretly, I still wish that Blue would finally announce the new Armstrong. That's not an official idea, just a graphic circulating on the internet. A possible evolutionary direction for this rocket? Another important topic is reusability. This is where it gets interesting. Starship Block 3 is designed from scratch for rapid, quick reusability. A heat shield made of third-generation hexagonal ceramic tiles, which they were finally able to test now. Active cooling with methane on the flaps and catching the booster and ship with the tower. The goal of a turnaround in under 24 hours is realistically achievable by 2027 to 2028. New Glenn relies on a classic landing on a ship in the Atlantic, similar to Falcon 9, just bigger. The first stage is supposed to return after 8 to 10 minutes. It deploys its 6 legs and lands on the jackup ship Jacqueline. This already works with the Falcon, and that's a rocket. The rocket propellant one, which is kerosene, burns and leaves a lot of soot, making it harder to refurbish the engines. The BE-4 engines use methane, which burns much cleaner than kerosene. You can clearly see here that the booster still looks completely clean after landing. Blue is talking about turnaround times of 1 month, but there aren't any concrete numbers yet. The booster that made the first landing is supposed to launch the third mission as well in January. From experience, Falcon 9 typically has 30 to 60 days between flights of the same stage. Even if Blue manages to reduce that to 2 weeks, Starship with its tower catch will still be ahead by orders of magnitude. The next important point is the launch price and profitability. SpaceX internally quotes $90 to $100 million per launch for Block 3. If fully reusable and with high cadence, at 100 launches annually, marginal costs fall below 20 million. That's Falcon 9 level, just with 200 tons of payload instead of 22. Blue Origin hasn't announced the price for the 9X-4 variant yet, but the current 7X-2 version is supposed to be under 100 million euros. The production of a booster is also supposed to cost around 100 million. Coincidentally, that's when the expendable, upper stage, and other operating costs come into play. So Blue Origin is subsidizing this price to aggressively enter the market and quickly gain a foothold. It will be similar with the 9X-4, but it will be hard to match Starship's price per kilogram. And that's the crucial point. It's not the absolute price that matters, but the price per kilogram to orbit. Starship is under $500 per kilogram reusable, and the Nuglin 9X-4 is around $1,400 per kilogram. And that's an optimistic estimate. Now we need to briefly talk about producibility and launch cadence. Star Factory at Starbase is set to increase to 1,000 ships and boosters annually in the next few years. 1 ship every 8 hours. Florida will be added as well and will double that. Blue Origin is currently building a second production hall in Huntsville, but currently they're rolling out 1 to 2 boosters per year. Even if they reach 5, that's still just a fraction. That's not a criticism. Blue just started thinking fully scalable 10 years later. SpaceX has the lead with 11 flights, over 300 Raptor launches, and a team that knows how to learn from mistakes. Blue's team is certainly excellent as well, but they're playing catch-up. By the way, if you want news like this, comparisons and in-depth analyses delivered straight to your inbox before they land on YouTube, then sign up now for the Mars Chronicles for free at Mars Chronic in Space. The link is of course down in the description. Of course, you have to be fair. New Glenn 9X-4 isn't even a prototype yet, while Starship Block 3 will already be flying within the next 6 months. Blue Origin has mainly produced PowerPoints and fancy renderings over the past 10 years. Meanwhile, SpaceX has launched 11 complete rockets into the sky and learned how to recover steel, repair heat shields, and achieve orbital refueling. That's a huge lead. And this is exactly where the big question lies. Can Blue Origin ever close the gap? Or will they remain a perpetual runner-up on the other hand? And now comes the part we always look at honestly. Starship is still far from being the perfect product. The Generation 3 heat shield tiles are better, but still fragile. But the latest tests have shown that Starship can survive re-entry even with several missing tiles. The thing with the chopsticks is spectacular, but also a single point of failure. If the arms ever fail to grab, you lose an entire booster and probably part of the launch facilities as well. And the production numbers of 1,000 ships per year. That sounds great, but we've all seen how quickly timelines at SpaceX can shift when reality gets in the way. In 2026, we'll probably be closer to 30 to 50 flights rather than 100. That's still more than the rest of the world combined. But it's not the Starship shuttle that some people already have in mind. Blue Origin has exactly one trump card that could really count: patience and money. Jeff Bezos pumps $1 billion in every year without pressure from shareholders. It paid off, the rocket has landed, and now it's becoming more and more attractive for government contracts and mega constellations. Because not everyone needs 200 tons, sometimes 70 tons are enough. But with a guaranteed launch date and without the SpaceX chaos, Starship will launch often, yes, but most of the flights will be tanker missions. The truth, as so often, lies somewhere in the middle. Starship Block 3 will dominate the market for now, because no one else can launch nearly as much mass for such a low cost. Nuglin 9X-4 won't be the Starship killer, but it will be a damn strong runner-up. Maybe even the favorite of the US government if they want to focus on diversification again. And that's exactly what's good for all of us. Competition drives progress. The more giants compete, the faster the launches become, cheaper, more reliable, and more frequent. What we'll see in 5 years will probably be both systems in operation. Starship fleets supplying Mars cargo and lunar bases, and Nuglin 9X-4 launching Golden Dome satellites and commercial stations. Two different philosophies, one brutally scalable, the other highly precise. And we, the spaceflight fans, benefit from both. If you enjoyed this duel of the giants, subscribe to Mars Chronicles and give it a thumbs up. A huge thank you goes out to all channel members and Patreon supporters. You make these in-depth analyses possible in the first place. If you also want early access to videos and exclusive content, you can find all the information about it below in the video description. I'm Serwin and this was Mars Chronicles. Thanks for tuning in. Per aspera ad astra.